I remember being at a barbecue years ago, and there was a man there that I think by most people's standards would interpret him as a chauvinistic individual. And he went on like some kind of rant, which was definitely disrespectful to women in general. And he's a married person, and in his own little vacuum, he must think that this is an appropriate way to talk. And do you remember what you did at this barbecue, or did you black out?
I don't remember what was it now.
Well, she didn't make eye contact with him because she didn't even want to look at him. And she goes, well, if you talk like that, I'm surprised that you're actually married. And you said that.
See, I don't remember the words, but I remember the feeling. I just remember being repulsed by this person.
Like, I feel bad for your wife. And it was honest, though. It was not like to hurt him.
Hello there, and welcome back to Marriage Sparks. We are continuing our conversation, diving right into emotional abuse. And I think one thing, as we left off last episode, that just popped into my mind was using I feel statements. Yeah, so you can't really argue with how someone feels. You can attack the person and say, you're this, like you said, saying you're a narcissist, you're emotionally abusive. What that does automatically is makes the person defensive. Then a defensive person who has a temper goes the offensive. That's not your goal. What's your goal? So maybe first, remembering back to, okay, this person loves me. Or at some point, I believed that this person really cared for me because he chose to marry me. So I'm going to draw on that and say, when you swear at me, I feel awful. It makes me feel awful about myself. And I hate it. I doubt myself and I feel awful. And it's not attractive. And I just makes me want to cry. And that's how I feel. And he can't argue with that. You can't argue how somebody feels, right? So I feel like it's funny because that popped in my head. Maybe I just gave my daughter the same advice. Like, like when you're having conflict with anybody, it's like, this is how I feel. And when you do this, I feel like this. And and so maybe that's the first place to go. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's a powerful thing. And we tell people this, I think, a lot of times to use I statements, right? I feel. And I think because what we're doing is we're trying to bring reality back to the forefront, because if everything becomes emotional, it becomes personal. And if it's personal, the other person doesn't necessarily always hear it. Like we said yesterday, a lot of the emotional abuse, not physical abuse too, but emotional abuse in a lot of ways is very similar to just bullying. And so the more that I am afraid of the bully, the more the bully says things. The more that I pay attention to the bully, look at them, want to please them, cater to them, they see me as a target. And so in your marriage, it can be the same thing, where if you don't have the strength of language to say, I feel this stuff, to say the truth, it's going to be very difficult for that person to recognize what they're doing. And I think it's hard to like always expect that people are going to have that level of confidence. Yeah, I agree that it works, but you also have to have confidence. One of the reasons why I would hope most of the people listening to this do not have emotional abuse in their marriage, is that hopefully your confidence in yourself is high. If you're a confident woman, I'm not going to bully her, right? I'm just not, because not because of anything specifically that she's doing. It's because that there is her own countenance, right? She has a culture of, that's just not something you do. It's just not something you say, because we've been around people that will say things that we'll just say are colorful or inappropriate, or we just straight up don't agree, me or her. But I remember being at a barbecue years ago, and there was an individual man there that I think by most people's standards would interpret him as a. Now, most couples think their marriage problem is communication. It's not. The real problem is that most couples are having the same conversation over and over again. You've probably heard this before. Well, we've already talked about this. Well, you always say that. You never listen to me. Why do we keep on having the same fights over and over again? None of this is a communication issue. It's a direction issue. You're trying to solve problems while walking in the same conversational circle. And the more you talk about it, the more stuck it feels. Healthy couples don't avoid conflict. They change the direction of the conversation. And when the direction changes, everything changes. So I'm going to be teaching a free webinar where I'm going to show you the simple shifts couples use to move their marriage forward without therapy sessions, without blame, and without digging up the past. If you want to learn how to change the direction of your marriage and the conversations there, click the link and join us. I think that you're going to find it surprisingly helpful. Chauvinistic individual. And he went on like some kind of rant, which was not emotionally abusive to the women, but it was definitely disrespectful to women in general. And he's a married person. And in his own little vacuum, he must think that this is an appropriate way to talk. And I don't even, do you remember what you did at this barbecue, or did you black out?
Remember? I don't remember what was it now?
What you said to him, and what she said was, well, she didn't make eye contact with him because she didn't even want to look at him. And she goes, well, if you talk like that, you said like, I'm surprised, like you said, like, I'm surprised that you're actually married. That, and you said that, and
See, I don't remember the words, but I remember the feeling. I just remember being repulsed by this person.
yeah, well, I mean, you just said, well, I'm surprised that you're married. Like, I feel bad for your wife. And it was honest though. It was not like to hurt him. And I don't know specifically like if your filter was off. I don't know if you were drinking. I have no idea what's going on. I mean, this was many years ago, but my point in saying that is this puts this person doesn't have any power, right?
Right.
Like, so you have to think like, do I feel confident? And again, if I feel confident as a man in myself, I'm not worried about what my wife thinks. Now, if I immediately need my wife for validation, so think about it. If I need my wife for validation, it's going to get very tense, because now I'm going to be afraid. I'm going to be afraid that I'm not getting validation from her. She's not telling me I'm wonderful. Those are the cycles where emotional abuse starts to take effect, where I want her to give me something, or vice versa. She needs to give me, or she needs me to give her something.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a fear-based experience of a relationship. But if I have less fear in myself, in my relationship, there's not going to be emotional abuse. So I think one of the things, we definitely need to talk about the truth. I feel this way. There is a gentleman named Chase Hughes who is an intelligence officer. He's a retired intelligence officer. And in counterterrorism, there was an acronym that was used in counterterrorism that he used for breaking down narcissists. Well, I guess that's the best way to transition it. And it was an acronym called FOG, FOG. And the acronym stood for fear, obligation, and guilt. And when somebody is presenting, because if you have somebody who's a narcissist or is emotionally abusive, like they're going to use fear, obligation, or guilt. And in the training of interrogations, if somebody is to use that to manipulate, because that's what people are doing, they're trying to verbally manipulate you through fear. Nobody wants you. Nobody will ever want you. You ruined your children's childhood. You're the ugliest person in the room, whatever it is, right?
You're my wife. You owe me this.
Yeah, you owe me, whatever it is. That's fear, obligation, and guilt. You want to use the phrase, they call it the golden bridge, and that comes from like the art of war, which the golden bridge is to allow your enemy to escape, right? So you use the phrase, it seems like. It seems like, you're trying to use fear to convince me to do this for you. Is that what you mean? And so,
did you know there are two kinds of desire in marriage? One just shows up. The other has to be built. Most couples only wait for spontaneous desire, the kind that feels automatic. But over time, that one fades and fluctuates. Responsive desire is different. It grows from closeness, from touch, from emotional safety, from friendship. And when you understand the difference, everything changes. We created a free guide called Into Me You See, a couple's guide to true intimacy, to help you rebuild trust, lower pressure around sex, and develop desire in a healthy, natural way. If you want deeper emotional and physical connection, download it now. It's free. Click the link in show notes or go to heartsrenewed.org and start tonight.
When we use the words, it seems like, it appears like, is that what we try to play dumb?
like,
It
well,
is.
objectively, it seems like this. And then a question.
And so when you do that, you're exposing the person to their own train of thought. They're exposed, and then they have to be aware. Because remember, when people are attacking you, they're not self-aware. They're just operating through fear. That's why these people get arrested if it goes to violence, right? They're just not aware.
Mhm.
Their feelings are controlling them. And I'm not making excuses for people's poor behavior, but if you got somebody that really is narcissistic or is emotionally abusive or whatever the case is, use that. That's a useful way to be like, it seems like you're trying to use guilt to make me go to your parents' house, or it seems like you're trying to force me, like by obligation, to have sex with you. Is that really what you're trying to do? But it's hard,
Mhm.
but you
But then
have,
you've called it out now and it's in the light.
yeah.
And that person has to either, well, yeah, that's what I'm doing, or no, you're crazy. Oh, okay. I'm glad that's not what you're doing.
Exactly. And I think that we have to kind of realize that, that people need to be called out. Not called out in a humiliating way. That's the whole thing, is you don't want to bring your fear into another person's fear, because then you have actual
And
violence.
then you're escalating.
Exactly. So that's why it's hard. Like again, for me and my wife, like we don't go into these things not because we're magic, but I think, and part of it is like we've talked about earlier this week, is we're studying the patterns and we're talking about and reinforcing what's working. And that is a habit, I think, more so than it used to be, even because we made that decision as a family. I'm
Yeah.
not going to give all my attention to the crap in this other person all the time, because you're going to get more of the bad things.
And the put downs, I
Yeah.
feel like is a big thing. I'm not going to constantly put the other person down.
Yeah.
I think we've both seen that too much
Yes.
in our lives. And we made that decision like, I don't want that for myself
Not
and I
at
don't
all.
want that for my
Yeah.
marriage
Yeah.
and my children. I'm not going to do that to my kids.
Yeah. So that's part of the culture in our home, and you can build that culture yourself. If you're struggling with these things, though, it means that you have to accept your confidence is already low in yourself and in the other person. But focusing on the other person is not going to build up your confidence. You have to think about the woman or the man you want to be as a person, and you have to be consistent with that person. And I think men need to be admirable, right? I was listening to, I think it's Dr. Albert Brooks was talking about how men need to be admirable in order for us to have admiration from our wife. So if I'm lazy, if I'm indulging in things I shouldn't, if I'm not making time for my responsibilities, if I'm not doing things that are admirable, my wife's not going to admire me. But then I have to adore my wife. And if I'm doing those things and we're both doing that, my wife is
Mhm.
admiring me and I am adoring her, well, then we're not going to get into these things where is he picking on me? Is she picking on me? It's not a question. Like, I don't go through my day going, oh, why is my wife picking on me? Why is she picking on me? People do this all the time. And we don't want to drop lower in that threshold where we are in defend mode. So build yourself up, number one. And then again, talk about the truth, because as St. Paul says, the truth will set you free, but it is not very easy to talk about if you're afraid. And so you need to get rid of the fear by being
Mhm.
consistent with the person you want to be. And as a man, to be admirable. And if you are the woman, you want to find something you admire in your husband.
Right, there's got to be something.
And if you can't admire anything in your husband, well then realistically, that's going to be part of the problem. So yeah. So again, I think we have to choose. That's why again, like you started off by saying you must pray. Yeah, you have to have a relationship with Jesus.
I was gonna say, I keep coming back to that. If you really have trouble even finding anything, that's when I would just say, Lord, help me to want to be with my husband again. And I feel like that's they're gonna open your eyes, or it's gonna change something that's gonna make your husband want to change those little things, or just, God's gonna soften something. He's gonna do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So come back tomorrow. So we can continue our conversation. If you haven't already hit subscribe, please do. Hopefully, you're enjoying these conversations. If you like them, please share them with somebody who needs to hear them. This is a real big deal in our world right now, because a lot of people are having a rough go, and a lot of people experience these things. So we'll see you back here tomorrow.